We change wardrobes and scenery for part two here for the Seattle Kraken mock draft. And we left off with Dallas, so we're going to go on alphabetically still with the Detroit Red Wings, who arguably have been the worst team in pro sports for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Arguably, depending on who you ask. So there isn't a whole lot of marquee names to be picking from this unbelievably looking list from the sounds of things. One guy that jumps out that I can't believe is still playing in the NHL is Darren Helm because he was on the teams when they were winning in '08.
Yeah. He's been around for quite some time. He's got that experience though, and maybe Seattle wants that championship pedigree. Like
Like a
I don't
Carey
know.
Price, I don't know.
He hasn't won
Oh,
a
well, he has no
championship,
rings,
so
right? Sorry.
exactly. So you can't really. Oh, don't even start. But I think one guy that they're gonna actually go after is Vladislav Nemestikov.
Former
On the
senator.
former senator, $2 million, and I think he'd be a great first line right winger. I think he'd fit
First line. Oh
first liner.
no,
Then
no
mine,
wonder
and
you're not in the show
I have
question.
him first line with Henrique and Niederreiter, who we already mentioned. I'd have my first line as the Kraken right there. I know a lot of people probably would say otherwise, but
Otherwise, yeah.
yeah, I think Nemestikov
Like
would be a great.
everybody else would say otherwise.
But look at Vegas, right? William Karlsson, he's that guy who really stepped it
Who
up. That
scored
first,
40 goals? You're telling me Nemestikov is going to score 40
you
goals?
don't know. No one expected William Karlsson to score 40 goals. Are you ridiculous? Give some guys some chances, and maybe they will. I think Nemestikov, not 40, but maybe around 25, 30 goals on the first line. Just wait and see. That's
So
my
you're
pick,
saying the
though.
bar pretty low then, huh?
Oh, pretty low, yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking defensively for Detroit. One guy who absolutely lit up at the World Hockey Championship scored the goal of the tournament for Team Canada, Troy Stetcher, defenseman.
Yeah,
Only $1.7 million cap hit and is an unrestricted free agent after the end of the upcoming season. I think he's coming on to this season with such a high for just how good of a performance he put on at the World Hockey Championship. Same with Adam Henrique, who captained Team Canada at the World Hockey Championship in Latvia. So maybe there's a common denominator between those two. But I think Troy
maybe.
Stetcher is a good depth defenseman to have on Seattle. And he can play. He's not an offensively minded defenseman nor a defensively minded defenseman. So he just fits both bills.
So it's
For the
two-way
Kraken,
defenseman, right?
yeah, it's kind of like the building the same mold as myself. Just really solid, defensively sound, and just good puck moving guy. Not the
For
two
sure.
Michael
Yeah,
Horn or
yeah, yeah.
anything, right?
And then on the bench, what? Just yakking away. So
Yeah, seeing yellow, not a good, not don't want to be there. The Edmonton Oilers up next here. A couple big contracts that they look like they want to get rid of. One of them being James Neal and Oscar Clefbaum. Oscar Clefbaum hasn't played in 2 seasons, I don't think, and a lot of people are saying, "Oh, why don't they take Oscar Clefbaum? Why don't they take Oscar Clefbaum?" The injury bug bites hard.
yeah, and I was doing my little mock draft here before, and I did it the other day, and I actually had Oscar Clefbaum, but I had to go readjust my pick here because, like you said, Clefbaum has just been injured. He's not playing. It doesn't look like he's going to even play this coming season. They're saying that's very unlikely. So I think if he was healthy, honestly, it would be a great pick for Seattle. But he's
Kind of
not
like
healthy.
welcoming a tennis match, right? Unlikely.
Who? What now?
Kind of like welcoming a tennis match, right?
That's
Unlikely.
very likely, actually. But we'll get to that. We'll see in intramurals.
What
Anyone
now?
want to challenge me? Anyone want to challenge me? I'm up for the challenge. But I think Clefbaum's, yeah, obviously they're not going to pick Clefbaum, but they're going to stick with defensemen and sign and select UFA Tyson Berry, who would be a great fit. I think he came over right from Colorado. He was on Toronto, and now he's on Edmonton. I think he'd be a great fit for the Seattle Kraken on that first pairing defensively. Um,
Loving the first line now, huh?
and this episode's all about the first liners, so I think Tyson Berry would be a great pick defensively for them.
Really. Defensively, more like offensively.
Defensively, not offensively, because he's a bust there.
Right. Yeah, he's only a 60-point defenseman in
Oh,
Colorado.
exactly.
That's for
He's
another
just a
story.
bust, just complete bust.
Uh, the one player I look for, not necessarily a household name, more of the prospect side of things. I think it was arguably probably one of the more locks to be made right now as we stand in terms of what's going to be picked in the expansion draft Wednesday night. That's Tyler Benson, forward from Edmonton, who's got an $808,000 cap hit and is a restricted free agent. He was supposed to be like one of the next big stars. I want to say like 6 years ago. I remember if someone remembers, remember TSN had these like Powerade 24 athletes. Remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Late. He was one of
Was he
those
one of
two.
them?
He was one of them. He was the original Powerade 24 athlete
No, he
for you
wasn't.
TSN geeks out there. But Tyler, no sponsorship by the way. Tyler Benson was the original one, and I think that he hasn't had the opportunity in Edmonton to really try to be that guy. Kind of like the Cody Glass situation in Vegas.
In Vegas, yeah.
He was the original Vegas draft pick, third overall. Would have been in 2018, and now he's like you saw. Now he's going to Nashville for Nolan Patrick. So new leash on life for him as well. So I think Tyler Benson could benefit as well for a change in scenery. The Florida Panthers are next. This is probably the biggest lock as
Yeah.
of right now in terms of who is going to be picked for Wednesday night. And I think there isn't much to be talked about other than that. It's going to be Chris Drieger, going to be the player picked. And I think he's going to be signing a 3-year, $10.5 million contract with the Kraken. Just
Ten
want
and
to
a
point
half
out
a year. Carey Price. Oh my
Carter
goodness.
Verhaeghe, Bart of Ontario zone, protected. No big deal.
I mean, just you saying 10 and a half a year, just like Carey
No,
Price.
no, no,
So
no, no,
there's no
no.
way they can sign Price now, right? There's no way.
You're funny. 10.5 million for the 3 years. So I
Yes,
believe
I'm
that's
aware. I'm aware.
3.75 annually. You want to do the math correctly? I don't know.
Wow. Big
But
econ major here
kind of
stepping
like
it
the
up.
same Jake Allen salary as that's what I look at it as. And
Where is that a bad thing?
Montreal plays with the same two salary goalies. Why can't Seattle?
Well, I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying don't pick Price. That's all I'm saying. Pick Price. I'm gonna have to become a Kraken fan. But yeah, you said it. It's a lock. You said it. 3 years. I saw the notification day. Sign and select. So I don't think you have him right. You have him picked there. I have him picked there. So he's gonna be one of those 3 goalies picked for sure.
That's going to be a lock right now, unless they pull a cat out of the hat and they say screw it. But the next up, the Los Angeles Kings. So you want to talk about veteran goaltenders? We have the
Yeah,
two-time Stanley Cup champion Jonathan Quick
pick him. Pick him.
on the unprotected list. I'm sure Malcolm is lobbying for that, but is that really your pick?
No, that's not really my pick. There's a bunch of goalies you could really pick here in this draft, but mine, what I'm going here is forward, not a forward who really would crack that top, uh, those top 4 lines, but maybe who can fit in there at some point is Brendan Lemieux. At $1.55 million, good on the left wing. I think he's a young guy that can really maybe, like you said, there's always a bit of these players want to change their scenery, and maybe this guy wasn't liking in LA, didn't get the chances he was maybe promised at first. In Seattle, maybe he can step up. Like I said in the previous episode, some of these guys can step up. So I think Brendan Lemieux would fit in
35,
nicely
40
here.
goals for this guy, maybe? The first line?
No. I just said not even cracking my top 4 lineup right now.
Yeah, if I do remember, Brendan Lemieux is kind of a goon. If you remember from New York, the New York Rangers had him for a while. He liked to stir the pot a little bit. So maybe bring the character guy into the squad, because I also have Brendan Lemieux being picked for the
Wow.
LA Kings. If it's not going to be Jonathan Quick, because I do think inevitably it's going to be Carey Price going to the Kraken. Wouldn't that be nice?
It's not happening, my guy.
So Jonathan Quick, I think, is a name to look out for. But I like Brendan Lemieux. He can stir the pot. A guy that can use his own weight around, because really there isn't much of that anymore in the NHL. If you look at Ryan Reeves, kind of like the same kind of role that he has with Vegas, can see the same thing in Seattle. I would not be totally opposed to that, because that's
Complete
what
goon.
hockey's about: stirring the pot, making some hits, chirping some guys, making fun of some hair. Minnesota Wild up next on the clock. Another good young goaltender that was exposed, Capo Kakinen, only 24 years of
Apple.
age. Split the duties with Cam Talbot, but even though Talbot saw most of the playoff minutes, Kakinen played very well if you were a fantasy owner of him. And there's one name I like to see that's there other than the pick I made, which is not him. It's Nick Bonino. He's played in some big games, made the cup, had a nice cup final run with Nashville. He is unrestricted free agent though, so watch out for him. He might get picked. But Malcolm, is that the guy?
No, that's not the guy for me. I'm picking a center here. Good. This is a guy when I'm playing cello, I'm doing an expansion draft. I'm picking almost every single time. And it's just weird that it's a weird consistency, but I think it just brings some good center depth. And that's Victor Rask at $4 million. I think Victor Rask would be a really good pick. Like I said before, center depth is a thing that a lot of teams actually lack in the NHL right now. So if you can go out and get that, like I picked Adam Henrique there, and we talked about Max Domi. So I think having those 2 guys and then Victor Rask on that third line as well, I think be great to just have that for depth at the center position.
I'm picking center as well, but it's not the $4 million cap hit of Victor Rask. I'm taking the cheaper alternative of the $2.05 million Mick Bukestad as
Great
your
pick.
fourth line center.
Hmm.
He's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the 2022 season. He's been bouncing around the last couple of years. He's been with Florida, he's been with Pittsburgh, and then now he's found his way to Minnesota. Found a role with Minnesota, made it to the playoffs, played some meaningful minutes, did some penalty kill. So I think that brings a lot of versatility to Seattle. He can play all over the ice, wherever you want him to play power play, penalty kill, 5-on-5. And he's a big body. I think he's over 6'4". So
Yeah, he's pretty huge.
yeah, no big deal. Almost not as big as me though, but
No,
we'll get there.
I don't think anyone is.
This guy's gonna get it. Montreal, the team we've been waiting to talk about, the growing eyesore of. Oh yeah, he found it on clearance today, folks. Carey Price, yeah, mark your calendars. He's already on his way out.
He's not. He's staying. There's a bunch of people that Vegas could really, not Vegas, Seattle could really pick. One of those guys was like Paul Byron. There's a lot of people. I don't think Paul Byron's getting picked. I think they're honestly, if they don't pick Carey Price, which I'm praying that they don't. If they don't pick Carey Price, I think they're going to go defense, and I think they're going to go Brett Kulak actually at $1.85 million. I think he's a good pick. He didn't get a lot of playing time in the playoffs for the Montreal Canadiens. He did come out though when he needed with those injuries, and he played solid defense. There's maybe a few times against in game number 4, I think it was, where him and Romanoff maybe made a few mistakes and let the Tampa Bay come up and tie that game back up. But like I said again, he's young, so just give these young guys some chances on a new team. I think Brett Kulak would be fitting nicely for Seattle, and maybe what do I have him? I have him on defensive pairing number 3.
As much as I like to say that Carey Price is going to be getting a chance to play for the Kraken, put some jerseys on the back of some fans, I really don't. It's highly unlikely
with his injuries.
Actually, will happen. Okay, I want to ask you this question: isn't it very weird that these injuries come up as soon as becomes unprotected and not after the season?
Well,
like Shea Weber.
Well, I'm gonna just say this too. Like Shea Weber, right? It did happen right after. He's probably gonna retire, so they might pull. If he doesn't retire, then they might be just put him on LTIR, pull a fucking Kucherov, or he retires and Nashville's stuck paying him, so we have cap space still. But with Price, he did have those injuries in the regular season too, and he was almost.
They announced after the playoffs and not after.
I don't know why they're not announced after
the
playoffs.
playoffs.
It's all sounded. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure why. I don't know. Can't tell you. I'm not Bergevin. I'm not Bergevin here.
34 years old.
I'm just a fan. Man. I don't know what's going on.
Since you're a fan, is Carey Price 34? Okay, he's
33. He's 33, turning 34.
So, and then he's got 4 more years remaining on the contract, and then he's
5.
getting paid 10 now after UFA.
After he turns 34, yeah, boy.
Yeah. So he'll be 38.
Yeah.
A $10.5 million cap hit, I think, is a big risk to take.
Especially when he's getting surgery.
Because if you're not making the playoffs, Carey Price is inconsistent. Sorry to say it. If you're not, because it's playoff price, that's about it. I believe I saw in the last 4 seasons, he's got a .909 save percentage in the regular season, which is good for 29th overall.
And he's also been maybe in 2 or 3 of those seasons he was injured, so he really didn't play a lot of those seasons. So you can't really. I don't know. I'm not gonna. This isn't the Carey Price episode. This isn't the let's bash Carey Price episode, because I just gonna be up back here defending him the whole night. So let's not even start this debate right now or this argument, because I'm gonna
start this argument because the guy I'm taking from Seattle and a sign and trade, I think that's what's going to happen, is a Philippe Danault.
Yeah, I would see that.
Going to Seattle with the money he deservedly gets, and he is going to be the top 6 center as your second line center.
For number 1 at that point.
No, number 1 we'll get to. The next team, actually, Nashville Predators, who have a lot of forwards to pick from because they decided to protect 5 defensemen in the protection list.
And they ended up trading Ellis too, which was crazy.
So if I can do the math, it's Ekholm, Yossi, Fabro, Carrier, and one guy I cannot. Colton Sissons,
Sissons
is also protected. No, Colton Sissons is not. There's somebody else I can't think off the top of my head. But 5 of the 6 defensemen, not including Ryan Ellis, were protected.
That's crazy.
Pretty much every forward except for Philip Forsberg is untouchable. Philip Forsberg, the only untouchable Nashville forward. So
That's
a
crazy.
lot to choose from if you're Seattle, and this got to be your number one center being picked here. No,
I know. You can talk about the number one center first. We'll get to my pick, but who is your pick here?
well, you have your choice between Matt Duchene and Ryan Johansson.
I
Both
didn't
are
pick either of them.
$8 million, and both are under contract for multiple seasons. So this guy is going to be your starting center, hence the NBA term, but your starting center for the NHL for the foreseeable future. And I think the guy that gives you the most upside, I think, is Matt Duchene. So I will take Matt Duchene as an extra year on his contract. I know he's not like him and Johansson aren't the two biggest guys in the locker room. They like to say some things beyond closed doors that happen to get leaked out on other ways. You know, remember the Uber or
The Uber
taxi?
ride.
Yeah, if you remember from Ottawa. So I mean, Matt Duchene can score some big goals when he wants to. He just gotta, have those character building skills, and that I don't think that Ron Francis is going to be. He's going to talk to whoever they're going to be picking about these kind of issues. So I think Matt Duchene is going to be the guy they take and be the number one center.
I didn't even pick either one of those two guys. I picked a guy here because you'll see why with some of my later picks because they have heftier contracts. But the guy I picked here was Nick Cousins at $1.5 million. I still think he's a good winger. He's a great winger. Like, again, maybe a little bit of a homer pick because I think he did have a little stint in Ottawa, if I do remember. I'm pretty sure he did. But I just know watching him, he's been great. If they don't go after one of those big guys, I think Nick Cousins is the guy to pick for a winger on the third line there.
So, okay, now I'll wait to see who your number one center is. I'm very curious to hear. But next up, the New
I already
Jersey
told you.
Devils are on next. Big name with a big salary, Pernell Carl Subban, under contract up until the end of next season. I'm just kind of curious. Doesn't really matter to me from this perspective, but how much do you think his cap or salary after next season is going to decline? Because I'm very curious, as he's nowhere near $9 million
Oh,
here.
it's definitely going to decline. Like, it, I don't know. I don't know. He just has to step it up. And this is the guy who I'm actually having Seattle pick is PK Subban. I think because I already picked Malcolm Subban. So I think the little brothers, the brothers reunite.
Was
They are on
Jordan
the same.
getting picked later?
Jordan, where is Jordan? Is he even still in the NHL? I don't
Last
know.
time I checked, he was in Utica.
Yeah, that's what I saw. I remember being on Vancouver, and then I don't know what happened to him. But PK, I think he's going to get picked here. Very marketable player. He's a guy that will bring a lot to the community too. So he'll be out in the community trying to create a fan base, honestly, because even when he was here in Montreal, he was out here in Ottawa donating, doing charity events, stuff like that. He'll do the same type of stuff in Seattle. I think that's one player, like we said with Max Domi, very marketable player. Maybe give him a new team to be the guy with. So honestly, if you have PK Subban, he's going to have to fit at that top defensive pairing or the second defensive pairing, depending if you trust him or not still. But I'd have Subban here for
I
Seattle.
want to say forward. I know I would love to see PK Subban wear Seattle Kraken colors. If that's the
Love
case,
it.
I'm buying that jersey because it's going to be a hot commodity.
Yeah.
But I think you're going to get a top six winger from the list of forwards that New Jersey gave up and pick the former Toronto Maple Leaf Andreas Janssen, who has a team-friendly $3.4 million cap and is under contract for the next two seasons after a UFA after the end of 2023. He's got pretty elite speed. I wish his hands could catch up to his feet because that seems to be the case with a lot of Toronto wingers. So, I mean, maybe Dave Haxtell knows Andreas Johnston very well from their days in Toronto. So maybe there's a bit of a connection there. So, wouldn't put it past Seattle to take Janssen, and he could play power play, and he's going to be a top six winger on this roster if that happens to be the case. New York Islanders up next. A couple of big names, I would say, to pick from: Jordan Everly, Josh Bailey, Casey Cizikas. 2, 3 big wingers that a lot of people play that they play big roles in. Do you see any of these three going?
Yes, and I have Jordan Eberle actually going. This guy could be a number one guy on the first line, but I said Nestikov, so I have Eberle on the second line
So you're
just to
telling me he's worse than
even out those lines a little bit. $5.5 million. Just another contract. I think that like you told me, you didn't say it on air, but you did tell me that Seattle did want to spend close to the salary cap. So eating up some of these big contracts is a good way to do it. I think Jordan Eberle is a guy where you eat up one of those contracts, but you also get a good player in return. He played great for New York last year. He's been good for New York ever since he joined them. They've had a few good runs in the playoffs. I think a lot of people on this Islanders team actually just are underappreciated because this team has been very good since John Tavares left. Remember, he's had zero.
And Barry
Uh,
Trotz came.
he's had zero series wins since he's joining the Toronto Maple
You
Leafs.
got
How
one
many is
more. Relax. One.
pardon?
Away.
New
And
York has won more than one playoff series
with John Tavares?
without John Tavares, I'm
Oh, I'm
saying.
talking with them. They only
Oh,
won.
with them, yeah.
But yeah, I'm picking Jordan Eberle to be the second line right winger behind a guy to be named later.
Oh, the suspense.
I know it's killing you. It's eating you out there. But yes, $5.5 million for Eberle. He's under contract until the end of the 2024 season. So very good team friendly deal. He's 31 years old, so he's not getting any younger. Maybe he got a chance to win a couple of rings with Seattle if they're thinking like the Vegas Golden Knights did. So I mean, pair him with a good centerman, like second line centerman with like Philippe Danault that didn't really do his thing with the creative ability he has. A little sports gasm just happened. And then the
Whoa.
Rangers are up next
Let's
on the
relax,
squad.
buddy.
Yeah, they just made a big signing for Barclay Goodrow. They are going to sign him for big money, so he is still on the unprotected list. But I don't know how that's going to work by the time
Maybe a little side trade.
free agency works with that deal. So I guess that's going to be for a later date. We'll find out soon. But not a whole lot of names to look at here. Tony DeAngelo. I mean, hey, he's pretty disgruntled. Do they try to look at the Tony DeAngelo the player, or do they look at Tony DeAngelo the locker room cancer?
I don't think they look at him at all, honestly.
Oh, okay, yeah, no big deal.
Not a big deal. I think they pick up Philip de Giuseppe. I think he's obviously not one of those guys, like I said before, not one of those guys that would crack that lineup, but maybe he does later on in the season. But I think he's a good player to have just in your system. $700,000, so very cheap player as well. Good left winger. I don't know. There wasn't much for me. I was looking at the Rangers team. There wasn't a lot popping out at me, but looking at Di Giuseppe, I think he's been a pretty decent player for them. So I think the Kraken benefit from picking him.
I don't know. I don't even know his family, but I bet his grandma makes better meatball than he makes saucer passes. Okay, and he's not looking at Philip Di Giuseppe at all. I'm liking
I
Julien
was.
Gauthier at all. Not even glimpsing. Come on, Julien Gauthier. I look at and say, he was a pretty good junior player. Did not have the kind of abilities he had right now in the NHL to make it work in New York. Restricted free agent at the end of 2022, so they can still have his rights after free agency. I think they give him the benefit of the doubt because the talent's there, but the raw talent, I should say, it's just still has not translated well to the NHL. And maybe with a bit more grooming and a bit more time to hem its craft, and maybe some just playing time in the NHL, if they want to just develop these guys, could definitely benefit for Julien Gauthier.